Thank you, Dr. Syam, for giving me a chance to talk with all of you. And thank you, these GRSS chapters. So, actually, I am replacing Professor Dayasagar's talk. So, thank you for giving me that. So, actually, this slot was meant for Professor Dayasagar, and my slot was for on 15th. So we just swapped that one. And thank you, Dr. Syam, for giving a nice introduction, a generous one. Thank you very much. So the today's topic of discussion is domain adaptation in interpretable classification models for remote sensing images. So before starting that one, let me just take the some kind of assumptions. It's something like that. It's raining in Bangalore, so there may be interruptions in power supply or internet things. So if that happens, please bear with me. So the topic of discussion is domain adaptation in interpretable classification models for remote sensing images. So it consists of several components in this particular talk. One part is that domain adaptation, another part is interpretable classification models, and the third one is the application of those things in remote sensing images. So this is what I will start in this way. As I was seeing the previous discussions or previous speakers, whatever they have discussed in this particular program, you people have already gone through this machine learning, deep learning, and all the things. So that is why I have put a slide like this. I presume that the followings are known to everyone. So that means, what are the presumptions? What is pattern recognition? Basically, what is a pattern, feature, and class? What is classification, clustering? What is supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised? What do we mean by training and test data? What is feature selections? What is feature extractions? What is the need of feature selection? What is the need of feature extractions? Issues with those extraction and selection process? How a deep learning works? What are the advantages of deep learning over machine learning? What kind of challenges we are having in deep learning also? So in general, I assume that all these things are known to most of the audience. So please let me know if my assumption is wrong. Can any of the participants respond? Can I assume that you all know all the things whatever just now I talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This has been already covered it. So
yes.
question answer will be have after your session will complete, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So that means many things related to pattern recognitions. But just to make a kind of flow, I'll just spend 5 or 10 minutes on this particular things very quickly. I'll go through that one, and then I'll go to the actual topic of discussions, that is domain adaptation in interpretable classification models. So we all know what is a pattern recognition is all about, right? And here in this particular today's presentations, we are going to apply a pattern recognition model for remote sensing images, right? So data is remote sensing data, and model is pattern recognition model. Now you can use any kind of models like simple machine learning model, deep learning model, and we'll see what are the problems we may face if we use the conventional deep learning and machine learning models. So possible problems are there. So that is why we are motivated to go for a different way of approaching the problems. That is what we call the domain adaptations. Okay. So this is a kind of concept, a kind of platform where both machine learning and deep learning is working. Okay, so they will work in that platform and try to do the same task, whatever normal pattern recognition models does, like classification model, clustering, segmentations, time series analysis, regressions. So all these problems can be solved. But we will just divert our modeling part little bit to go for the domain adaptations, and we'll see what are the benefits we are getting using those kind of models. So this is normally we all know a pattern recognition systems. Your input comes here, your output goes there. So we all know what happens in that. There are three steps of operations normally: characterizations, information pre-processing, and model development. So characterizations means you are going to extract the informations from the input. So normally most of the time we call it a measurement space also. This space where we actually measure the characteristics, functionalities of the input. That means we are trying to understand the problem, whatever problem we are giving here as the input. Now the information pre-processing, whatever informations we got here in the characterization steps, we are going to pre-process that. Now someone may not go for the pre-processing. Directly you can just go from characterization to model development. So but this is a very crucial task actually, and crucial decisions whether you need pre-processing or not. So based on your problems, based on your tasks, based on your domains, applications, you have to decide what kind of pre-processing is required for a better development of the model. Okay, so normal pre-processing that we all know: feature selection, feature extractions, noise cancellation, normalization, standardizations, dealing with missing or outlier values. So these are the basic things. There are other way of pre-processing of informations are also there, and after doing all the things, those pre-processed information goes to the model development. So here actually we do the development of the model, whatever kind of development of the model. It can be a simple machine learning or deep learning or domain adaptation or whatever it is. So you go for the model development here and you give the output, right? So this is how a pattern recognition system works. So just as we all know, see, these are all the assumptions we all know. So I'm just going to have a kind of refreshing the previous knowledge so that that can be linked properly to the domain adaptations. Okay. So this is what the machine learning thinks: input to output mapping. This is what the job of the machine learning models, and we all are struggling to get that system parameter or the functions which is mapping from input to output. Okay, and this is very much similar to a LTI systems. I believe you all know, like in digital signal processing or signal systems, we are dealing with fixed systems, adaptive systems, like that. Okay, so linear time invariant system. It also does the same thing. It takes the input, process it, gives you the output. Now the question is, if that processing, whatever you are doing on this input, is pre-programmed. Pre-programming, you know what you are going to do with your input. So we call it a fixed parameter. And somehow, if we are not aware of the fact what we are going to do and what are the expected, that means there is a kind of mismatching of the mapping between input to output, then we go for adaptive systems. We normally call it adaptive filter. So this adaptive filter and machine learning principles of workings are exactly same. And this is how the analogy between adaptive filter and machine learning. Okay, you do the same thing, whatever you are doing in adaptive filter and in machine learning. In machine learning, in machine learning systems, we call it a model, and here in the systems and signal systems, we call it adaptive filters. Here we call it a learning, here we call it a adaptive, but the working principles are same. So you are going to adapt, you are going to change the system parameter so that your model performance will behave the way you like, the way or the kind of target you are expecting. Okay. So with these small introductions to this machine learning and pattern recognitions and adaptive filters working principles, then we'll go to the domain adaptations. I believe there is no confusion in the machine learning concept, there is no confusion in the deep learning concept, and there is no confusion in the way a machine learning model works, right? This is what we are now going to discuss: domain adaptations. What is that actually? Why do we require that? Is it so important for us? And if we don't do that, what will happen? Okay. So all these questions we are going to discuss in this platform. Now it is obvious that why shall we go for a different kind of approach? When we go for a different kind of approach, the motivation behind that is that we are not happy with the previous approaches. Happiness in the sense, sometimes your processing systems are very much complex. Sometimes your outputs are not expectable one. You are not getting what you are expecting. The way you are developing the model is more complex. It is not applicable to all possible kind of domains. So there are several problems are existing that we all know, right? It is something like that we normally call as there is no free lunch available. In machine learning domain, we normally call a kind of statement we use, there is no free lunch available. That means today you develop a model, and if you start expecting that this model will work for you across the domain, across the applications, it is not possible. For each and every problem, for each and every task, you need to go for a different machine learning models. That we all know. Okay. Now, because of this kind of scenarios, we are somehow not happy with that performance. We are not happy with that complexities of the systems. So that is the basic motivation of going for the domain adaptation. In details, we'll discuss that. Okay. So first of all, let us discuss what are the challenges of conventional machine learning or deep learning. Whenever I am talking about machine learning, it is also applicable to deep learning. Okay. So what a machine learning and deep learning normally does? The most prominent task of modern computer vision includes signal, image, video classification, object detection, pose detection, instant segmentation, time series analysis, forecasting, object tracking, and many more. So these are the prominent tasks of modern computer visions. And these problems are addressed by the machine learning models. And our expectation is that we will develop a classification model or clustering model or regression model or some kind of model, machine learning or deep learning, which will help us to get some level of solutions for this kind of problems. So these problems are quite successfully resolved with deep learning methodologies. Okay. So we are not going to discuss what are the differences between deep learning and machine learning, that we all know. Okay, let us assume that both deep learning and machine learning have certain kind of similarities and certain kind of dissimilarities, because you all know, right, deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Okay, so there are something like which is there in deep learning that is there in machine learning, but some of the concept of machine learning which cannot be applicable to deep learning. We all know that one. Okay, but time being, let us assume that machine learning and deep learning for this today's presentations platform, both are visualized as a singular or similar models. Okay. Now come to the actual discussion point. When we develop a machine learning model or when we develop a deep learning model, whatever machine learning or deep learning model you develop, we develop those models with some kind of assumptions. Assumptions means, I believe you are understanding, right? The way the first one slides I showed you, right? I presume that the followings are known to you. Exactly same way. Whenever you are developing a machine learning model, it considers or it assumes something, some kind of assumptions it takes as a kind of granted one. And if that those assumptions are not there, probably your machine learning or deep learning may not work properly. So we are bound to fulfill those assumptions before developing any kind of machine learning and deep learning model. So let us see what are those assumptions. So machine learning or deep learning works with the assumption something like availability of large amount of level data. As you all know, most of the problems, whatever we are encountered in real life scenarios, There are certain kind of data set, or there are certain kind of problems where we have a lot of level data. There are certain kind of problems where we have less amount of data. And there are certain kind of problems where we don't have even level data. Okay. So when you are developing a machine learning or deep learning model, particularly I'm talking about a supervised models. Okay. So whenever you are going for a supervised machine learning or deep learning model, we assume that we have large amount of level data. And if you cannot satisfy that conditions, probably your machine learning or deep learning supervised model may not work properly. Here, try to understand large amount, not a small amount. And that large amount means maybe in million and trillion for solving any real kind of scenarios, any real kind of problems. Okay. So the second assumption is that training and testing domains are same. Here, try to understand it. Training and testing domains are same. Whenever we are developing any supervised classification models, whether it's a machine learning or deep learning, what do we do? Whatever data sets we have, we partition them into two sets, correct? One set we assume as a training, another set we assume as a testing. So for example, let us say I'm having 100 number of samples in my data set. Forget about where from that data set has come. Okay, anyway, I just collected 100 number of samples from a domain. And I'm going to develop a machine learning model, and I'm going to test that model also, because that is the process. Okay, training and testing. So what I'll do, I'll partition them into training set and test sets. That means that 100 samples will be partitioned as one set as training, another set as testing. Okay, so that testing, let us say I partition them into 70-30 proportions. That means out of 100, 70 samples become the training, 30 samples become the testing. So on that 70% samples, we will develop the model, and once the model is developed, we will test on that test samples of 30%. Now, are you able to visualize this particular scenario? When you are talking about training set and test set, both training and test sets are partitioned from where? From the same original data set. That is, these 70 and 30s are partitioned from 100 samples. So the meaning here is that both domains, domain means that particular task, wherever it has come from, both training and testing samples have come from the same domain, because your original data has come from a particular domain. So this is the assumptions of the machine learning model. Whatever data set we have, we partition them as training and testing, develop the model on training set, test the model on testing set. Okay, so this is the assumptions. What are the other assumptions? Feature space of both domains are same. The meaning here is that because we have partitioned that 70 and 30 from the 100 samples, whatever features we have considered for that 100 samples are also there in the training set and also in test sets. So whatever feature types and feature values we have considered for that 100 samples, they are all applicable to both training and testing domain. Domain means here a platform where you are performing that task, whether you are performing the training task or whether you are performing that testing task. So training testing domains are same, feature space of both the domains are same, correct? Third assumption, distributions of both domains are same. Distributions, I believe you are understanding, marginal distributions, class conditional probability distributions, joint distributions. So all the probability distributions for both training and testing samples are same. Now these three assumptions are mandatory to develop any kind of machine learning or deep learning models. So we cannot just avoid those things. We have to follow this, or we have to take it as a kind of granted that yes, my data set, my model, whatever I am going to develop, it is satisfying these three assumptions. Okay. The other assumption is availability of lots of time. Try to understand this one in a different way. Availability of lots of time. That means we have a lot of time to develop the model. Why I am telling like that? Because as I already told you, right, there is no free lunch available kind of thing. That means you cannot just develop a model and directly apply that model across the domain or across the platform or across the problems. So that means what? Different domains, different models. And that models will be from the scratch. Now, if you are practicing this kind of approaches, what is the meaning here? We never deal with a single domain. We deal with the different kind of domain. Today I am dealing with remote sensing domain. Tomorrow I may deal with the medical domain. After that I may deal with telecom domain. So different domain data. Again, within that remote sensing domain, there are several scenarios. Within the medical domain, there are several scenarios, several platforms, several diversions are there. So it is not like that you have developed a model for remote sensing images and you apply on the medical images. It is not allowed. At the same time, you have developed a model in a particular remote sensing domain. That means, let us say, multispectral images. You cannot apply that multispectral image domain based model to a hyperspectral images. Or a model which is developed in hyperspectral images cannot be applied onto multispectral images. So that it means what? The assumption is that we have a lot of time. Because whenever we are dealing with a different task, we are ready to develop the model from the scratch. So in that sense, I am telling availability of lots of time. We have a lot of time. Because we are ready to develop a classification model from the scratch for each and every problem. Scratch means different model with new data and processing. Whatever pre-processing you are doing for one data, that cannot be or may not be applicable to other kind of data. This is what we are facing. This is what we are keep on addressing each and every day. And another one is that different feature space, different distributions, different model. Here in the first point, different model is based on different domain. Here, different model is for different feature space and different distributions. I believe you all are understanding what is the meaning of feature space and distributions. So if you change the distributions, if you change the feature space, you have to develop a different model for that particular space. That means you are doing all the things from the scratch. So if you are ready to do all this particular task, or you are ready to solve this problem, that means you have a lot of time. Okay, so these are the basic assumptions of a machine learning or deep learning model. Now, assumptions becomes the challenges for machine learning and deep learning. Try to understand. These assumptions becomes the challenges for machine learning and deep learning model. So what are our first assumptions? Availability of large amount of level data. Is it not a challenge? Big challenge in real-time scenarios. Although we are dealing at this present scenario with the big data, but still there is a dearth of large amount of level data. We don't have large amount of level data because large amount of level data requires human expert or human interventions. And using the human expert is expensive and time consuming. So the assumptions of the machine learning and deep learning, these particular assumptions has become the challenges for the machine learning and deep learning. Because most of the problem in real-time scenario, they do not have large amount of level data. So what is the second one? So second assumptions we just discussed is that training and testing domains are same. This is what the assumption of the machine learning and deep learning. But in real-time scenario, this is also a challenge for deep learning model or machine learning model. For example, IT industries. See, whenever we are developing any classification model in the context of machine learning or deep learning. So we are all dealing with machines, right? So we are expecting that a machine will work for us. So we human beings are getting help from those machines. Okay. So let us take an example of a human way of taking the decisions. For example, where I have given the IT industries, you all agree with me in IT industries what happens. It is something like this. Let us say a person who is trained in, let us say, chemical engineering, let us say a student is from the chemical engineering domain. After certain level of training, see that BTech degree or MTech degree comes with 4 or 6 years of durations, right? But that same person joins a IT industry with a very small level of training. Let us say some level of training, 5 months or 6 months, and join the IT industry. At the same time, a BTech or MTech student from computer science also joins the same IT industry. A student who has come from a science graduate or a arts graduate or a commerce graduate, having certain level of training, small level of training, that training cannot be compared with the training whatever someone is taking in these original courses. So with that small training, they are also joining the IT industries. So what scenario we are seeing here? People are coming from the different domain. In a diverse field, one is from science background, one is from arts background, one is from commerce background, one is from engineering background, and among the engineerings, there are several branches of engineering are there. But all of them are coming to the IT industries and doing the same job or very much similar job. If I'm not allowed to say same job, let me use the word similar kind of job. Now, how it is happening? So where is the training and where is the testing happening here? Training means when that student is getting their degree, that is the training phase. And testing means that abilities of that particular person is tested in IT industries. So that is the testing domain, this is the training domain. Are they same? They are not same. Although they are not same, but still as a human being, we are able to manage that. Although we are trained from the science department domain, we are able to handle the IT industry's problems. A person from chemical engineering, a person from metallurgy, a person from computer science, electrical, electronics, information science, all of them are joining this similar kind of work environment. So a human being can do that one. We all are doing. I believe you are agreeing with me. So try to understand these training and testing domains are not same. But still we are able to manage that. Now try to understand. A person is trained with computer degree or BTech or MTech from computer degree. Whatever abilities of that person will be there in the IT industries, I believe, let us say a person from arts background or commerce background may not be that much efficient. Because their training has been done in a different domain and testing is being done in a different domain. But after in a due course of time, both of them are holding the similar abilities. Now, if this kind of scenario is going to be solved by a machine, will it be possible? Is it a simple task? Straightforwardly, your machine learning algorithms will never work here. Because training and testing domains are different here. So you need to do something different so that the training and testing domain, although they are different, but they will provide you an appreciable accuracies or appreciable performance. So the third assumption was feature space of the both domains are same. In real-time scenario, it is not the scenarios, or it is not this case. Actually, same problem, IT industries. Your feature space during the training and your feature space during the testing, they are not same. But your machine learning models or deep learning model assumes that both should be same. Same way, same thing is applicable to distributions also. So these assumptions of the machine learning or deep learning are becoming the challenges for its own. Another one, availability of lots of time, same thing. Different domain, different model from the scratch. Different feature space, different models from the scratch. So a person or a student, let us say, trained with science background, when that same person is asked to perform in the IT domain. So what we can do, as per the assumptions of machine learning, we need to train the same persons from the scratch. Or let us say if you are using a machine learning model, after the training, before going for the testing in the other domain, we need to train the same model again in the testing domain. So these have become, they are the big challenges for machine learning and deep learning. Let me give you some examples. Okay, before going to that example, some of other challenges. So the big challenges in supervised model remains the same, limited level samples but large unlabeled samples. As I already told you, getting level samples are time consuming, costly and requires costliest human interventions. Almost everywhere. I believe you all are, or most of you all are faculties. Most of you all are research scholars. Most of you may be the doing research. So you know how to write a paper, and in that paper, whenever you are reading any paper, almost everywhere, you will find some kind of fancy statement like this. If your model is not working, then you may say that the problem may be from the data set, except some benchmark data. Do you ever say that my model works across the domain? My models work to different kind of data sets? No, we don't do that. Collecting reliable, diverse data is as important as designing model themselves. Most of the time, what we do, we put whole of our effort in the development of the model. But the similar kind of effort you have to also put in collecting the level data and which are more and more reliable in nature. Okay. So one possible solutions for this kind of challenges like level data things, one can think that create level data manually. Possible solutions I am telling, but the problems may be how do you estimate the accuracy of the data sets or levels? For example, whenever you are taking, let us say, photographs, leveling the depth informations, what is the distance between your scenery, field of view, and your camera? How do you estimate that? Although largely available data sets are freely available, but this readily leveled data can bias the research towards particular problem. Your own problem will never be exactly the same. Today I am having one problem, tomorrow I'll have a different problem. As a human being, do you encounter with the similar kind of problem every day? No. Morning we have a problem, afternoon we have a problem, evening we have a problem, and tomorrow is another problem. Everywhere problem. Every day we realize that as a human being, I am telling, every day we realize that today a lot of problem I am having. Yesterday was better day for compared to today's. We all say, right? Now when you will go to the tomorrow, you will tell the same thing. No, yesterday was better than today. So that day will never come in your life period when you will feel that today is better than yesterday. But still we are facing those things and we are trying to solve those problems. So that is the advantage of a human way of taking decision and a machine learning based decisions. Okay. Another possible solution, if you cannot create the data manually, then you synthesize the data. But the problem will be one kind of data to prepare the network to cope of different kinds. Whatever realistic you create the data, it still cannot completely indistinguishable from the real world scenarios. The major underlying problem here is the domain shift. Domain shift means change of domain. Your training domain and test domains are becoming different. So your feature space distributions of the training domain and feature space and distributions of the test domains are different. So that is the basic motivation of domain adaptations. You are adapting that domain while you are moving from training to testing. So the traditional machine learning tasks assume the training and test data are drawn from the same same data space and the distributions. Insufficient level data result in poor prediction performance. Start from scratch is always a time consuming. So these are the challenges of machine learning, and that becomes the motivation for domain adaptations to resolve some of these issues of machine learning and deep learning. So let us see. Let us visualize the problem here. Now let us say I have two domains of data. Okay, as usual, right? In a machine learning model, you do like this. You have some data sets, you partition them as training, and that testing. Train your model on the training data, test the model on the test data. Okay, so let us say our scenario is like this. So what are the scenario? We have given training data like this: a car, a SUV car, and a Mercedes car, and a car, something like this. So these are the training domain data. We are developing a model with this training data. Okay. Now, there is nothing great that we are training the data with this kind of images and testing your model on this similar kind of images. What is great here? So the task becomes very simple now. It is same thing to say that a person who is trained in a computer domain or information science domain, whatever kind of enjoyment or whatever kind of easy way of dealing with the information technologies domain, what same kind of things are not applicable to a person who is trained with is like something like arts domain or commerce domain or some other engineering domains. So that means, what is the message here? Wherever you are getting trained, your model is normally biased towards that particular domain. So machine learning is biased towards the data set, biased towards the feature space, and biased towards the distributions. And it assumes that wherever I am getting trained, you give me tasks from that particular domain. But let us say our scenario is not like that. Our scenario is something like this. Sorry. So let us say we have given this kind of samples or images as a training, and these samples we have given as a testing. You can easily see that they have not come from similar domain. Here the structure, architecture, locations of the training samples are completely different from the target domain or test domain. Now in this kind of scenario, can your machine learning model perform appreciably? Let us see. So in an example, another examples, let us say these are the training samples and these are the test samples. And you can easily say that both these samples have come from same domain. So let us say cityscapes is one kind of data set. Okay, so that data sets are partitioned into two sets, training and testing. That means both training and testing are happening on the same domain. So probably your machine learning model got from OL, right? Let me change the testing domain. Try to understand. These are the training domain, and you tested that model on similar kind of domain. Okay. Now what we will do? Let us change the test domain. But your models are trained on this left hand side, first column data sets. Okay. If we change the domain, let us say our domain changes from cityscape to some other domain. So probably you can see like this. Decisions will be something like this. Because here the blue regions are related to car. Here you will see that blue regions here are also car. Here you will find a tree. Here you will find a sign. Okay, so wherever cars are there, wherever trees are there, that will be properly identified. But because this kind of training samples we have never used, and if you are using for the testing, so your model will give you tree and car like this. Let us change something more difficult domain data like this. You can visualize like this image, right? This is a tunnel, you know, under the overbridge. So let us say we are trying to test that model on this tunnel. But where we train that model, we train the model here. And we are testing the model in a tunnel. Now what will happen? You will see building, trees, all the things are there. Do you find a building and trees under the tunnel? No. But your model will give like this. Why these kind of problems are happening? Because your testing domains are completely different from training domain. Similar kind of problems comes here also. Let us say here is your training data, here is your test data. Here you have trained the data, trained the model with this kind of bag, table and cycle. But you are testing that model on this kind of data. This will become, let us say, RGB color spaces, each from training domain and a different color space in the test domain. So this is a difference in feature space, not in the domain. Although you are taking the same domain data, but you are taking the different features. Distributions are different here. Here, you are training the model with a simulated data, but here you are actually practically realizing that data. That means your training domain and test domains are different. From CAD model to real images. CAD model is you are understanding, right? The model whatever we are using in the laboratory. So those models are used during the training, but in the real-time scenario, we are testing that model. So domains are almost different. So in that kind of scenario, most of the time your machine learning and deep learning model doesn't work properly. It will give you the accuracy, but that accuracy level will not be in appreciable way. Okay. So this is how in another example, if we want to understand this machine learning task, let us say there are some triangular shapes are there, and let us say there are squares or rectangle shapes. You are training the model and testing on the similar kind of domain. Same way, you are training the model here in this kind of domain and testing the model in this kind of domain. But let us say our scenario is not like this. Our scenario is something like this. Domain A. This is your, let us say, domain A, and this is, let us say, domain B. You are developing a model using the samples from domain A, but you are trying to test the model on a data set which are not coming from the domain A, but it is coming from a different domain that is called domain B. So this model, whether it will work for domain B samples or not. Let us say we are trying to understand this kind of scenario, and we will see that whether our machine learning model or deep learning model works or not. This is like this. So this is your training domain and this is your testing domain. So in the domain adaptations, we use a particular term here. So your training domain we normally call as a source domain. and testing domain we normally call as a target domain. So you are developing your model using the samples of source domain, and you are testing your model using the samples from the target domain. Like this, you use this set training samples, model, get the knowledge, and try to use them in the data set which has come from target domain. Now, is it possible? Similar scenario here. Domain and domain. If both the domain training testing domains, classical scenarios, real scenarios, then probably you may get a good accuracy. But if it changes, your training domain is different from testing domain, your accuracy is drastically coming down. This is classical scenario and this is real scenarios. Okay. What is domain adaptation then? Domain adaptation is something like this. So whenever you are developing any classification model or deep learning model, what do? You assume some kind of assumptions. What are those assumptions? Prior distributions of the parameter. Okay. And those distributions of the parameters, distributions of parameters, you are keep on changing till it is adjusted for the source domain. Okay. So once you do that, then whenever your test scenario comes, learn the parameters of the test domain using the source prior distributions. So whatever knowledge we gained from source domain, can it be directly applicable to target domain? Or we need to do some exercises there. And this particular task is called domain adaptation. You are adapting that target domain, or you are trying to resolve the problems of the target domain using the knowledge of source domain. But this is also true that if your source domain and target domain are completely different, I mean, there is no overlapping of informations, nothing can be done. Nothing can be done. Then what can be done here? There must be some level of similarity between source domain and target domain. We'll discuss what are those some level of similarity. And if that is there, probably whenever you are developing the model, that model will be called as domain adaptation based classification model. Although both the domains are not exactly same, but they are very much or maybe partially similar to each other. Okay. So in a definition point of view, what do we say? So when the distributions of data in the target domain is different from source domain, then we say our domain adaptation based classification model will work or is required. Okay. So for example, let us say your source domain is the synthetic data and target domain is real data. Okay. Domain adaptation aims at learning from a source data distribution performing on different target data distributions that we have already discussed. So devising models that can cope up with this kind of change or shift is the approach called domain adaptation. So it has already been seen that, and it is shown to be beneficial for learning on related sources. When more than one source distribution is available, the problem becomes multi-source domain adaptations. These are all definitions actually. So you are actually trying to adapt your domain information from source to target, and that is what the domain adaptation is all about. And I already told you, you cannot assume that both the domains are completely different. We normally use a term called mutually exclusive. They are nowhere related to each other. Now your domain adaptation cannot also work there. It will only work when there are certain kind of relationship exist between source domain and target domain. For example, let us say in a multispectral images, if we want to visualize this particular scenario, what is domain adaptations? So probably your domain adaptations is something like that. Let us say your list 3 data you are using as a training data and list 2 data you are using as a test data, or the other way around. But earlier what we are doing, if you are using list 3 data for training, we are trying to test that model on the same list 3 data only. Same way, if we are using a list2 data as a training samples, we are trying to develop the test the model on the list2 data only. Now let us see if we can develop a model on the list3 data, can it be applicable to list2 data? Or if it is developed on the list2 data, can it be applicable to list3 data? So in a small way, we'll just try to visualize this particular scenario and try to resolve these problems. Okay. So domain adaptation is one kind of TL. TL means transfer learning technologies. You are transferring the knowledge or learning abilities from the source domain to target domain. So this is one examples actually. Let us say source domain data of class 1 and class 2 looks like this. So your target domains are these. Now you can see your distributions of the source domain and target domains are not similar. The distributions are changed. This is one example actually. So there is a mismatching happens here and you may face some kind of difficulties in providing the decisions. Okay. So if you are using a domain adaptation model, what is assumed here? How do you work? There is a source domain, there is a target domain, level source data, on level source data or level source data. You do the domain adaptation, that means you are sharing the informations. Okay, and once it is trained, you are using this model for testing the data. We'll see with some particular architectures. So this is what you can say a taxonomy of transfer learning domain. Okay, transfer learning means you are transferring the knowledge of source domain to target domain. So there are different terminologies are there. Just let us not discuss other terminologies. Let us discuss the domain adaptation part. So the transfer learning with level data are available only in source domain, which is called transductive learning, and this assumption is called domain adaptations. There are other kind of things are also there, that is called multi-task learning, self-taught learning, sample selection bias or covariance shift, unsupervised transfer learning, supervised transfer learning, so many things are there. Okay, so let us restrict our discussion to domain adaptations only. Now within this within this domain adaptation scenarios, we have different settings. We call it as a supervised domain adaptation, unsupervised domain adaptation, semi-supervised, one-shot learning based domain adaptation, zero-shot learning, self-taught learning based domain adaptation. Okay, so what is called supervised domain adaptation? When both the domains are having level data. Your source domain and target domain both are having sufficient amount of level data. And when you are trying to transfer the knowledge from source to domain target, that particular approach is called supervised domain adaptation. Then what is unsupervised one? Large amount of source level data are available, but there is no target domain level data. Only on level data are there in the target domain. That when you are developing a model using the domain adaptations scheme or domain adaptation logic, then we call it a unsupervised domain adaptation. There is something called semi-supervised domain adaptations, when large amount of source domain data but very limited amount of target domain level data. Normal semi-supervised classification algorithm, that is what we assume, right? We have very small amount of level data but large amount of on-level data. So we call it as a semi-supervised machine learning algorithm. In domain adaptations, you have large amount of source domain level data, but very limited amount of target domain level data. Similarly, one-shot learning, that means target with one level samples, zero-shot learning and self-taught learning. Let us not discuss more on this particular thing. We will now restrict our discussion to supervised domain adaptations. Okay. So if you want to understand those particular concepts in terms of mathematics, this is how a simplified form of mathematical representation of domain adaptations. Okay, so if it is this x is a input variable to a learning system, that is observations are called features, and y is called, let us say, levels or output variables. So the features and level space normally we represented like this, and x and y are the specific values of x and y. Then this is given and this is your target. D is given, T is the problem. This is your task. So what is given? That features, this chi means your features informations. Okay, so feature informations are there, but margin and also marginal distributions of each of the variables or each of the features are also given. In target, what you are going to what is your target or what is your task? A pair of levels, your levels you need to estimate, and class conditional probability density function you need to estimate the parameters of the things. So what is the prediction functions? X to Y. Okay. So in the source and target mismatching thing, what is happening? Your D and T, S means, see, superscript, there is one symbol called S and T. S represents source, T represents target. So this D for source and target may be same or similar. T for source and target may be same or similar. Marginal distributions for the source and target may be same or similar. Likewise, class conditional probability density functions for source and target may be similar or may be different. That means any possibilities of the target and source is it may happen. So how to deal all this kind of problem? Now let's restrict our discussion to a certain task where we are only assuming that our feature space are similar but distributions are likely different. Okay. So if we restrict our discussion to that particular point, okay, let me skip this particular thing. And if you are using a deep learning model, let us say how a deep learning model can be fit for the task of domain adaptations. Okay, so what you do in here, your source data you give CONV1 means this is your CNN. Okay, convolutional neural network you are using simple deep learning model. Convolution 1, convolution, that means 5 layers of CNN, fully connected layer of 6, 7, and 8, and you are getting the classification. Okay, so normally you do like this using a deep learning based classification model. Okay, you are having classification loss here, so using that loss you keep on training them on, keep on changing the parameters and minimize the classification loss. Okay. So if you want to adapt this particular scenario to domain adaptation, what you have to do? Your source domain is not completely different from target domain, but they are very much similar. Here also you are having chair. Here also you are having the chair, but in a different road scenarios. Here your backpack is something like this. Your backpack is something like this. So what we are doing? Applying source classifier to target domain can yield inferior performance. In this particular case, if we develop a model, CNN model here, and if we apply directly on the target domain data like this, probably your performance will not be good. So what we will do? We need to go for this kind of schemes or this kind of architecture. That means you do certain kind of feature alignment. Feature alignment means you use the source level data or source domain data, develop a deep learning model. For example, here it is CNN model. Now that pre-trained CNN model, you use them in the target domain data. Now, because it is a pre-trained one, it will also extract some features. The way it extracts features from the source domain, it will also extract features from the target domain. Now, those two feature set, one feature set coming from the source domain, one feature set coming from the target domain. You align them, you fuse them, you combine them. This is called the feature alignment based domain adaptations. And once you fuse them or align them, and again you do the what is that? Fine tuning of the CNN using the source domain. And after fine tuning, whatever developed models are there, if you apply that one to the target domain, probably your accuracy factor will increase. And this particular schemes or architecture is called domain adaptation based convolutional neural network classification model. Okay. So the same thing in remote sensing domain, source domain is this, target domain is this, a CNN model you are doing, and the same pre-trained model you are applying on the target domain feature alignments. We normally, there is a term called subspace feature alignment, and that things are there. So those feature subspace element will be used for the testing case. Okay. So finally, what we are getting here, what, how, and when the domain adaptations are used, that we understood. Okay. So let us go to a particular case studies using this particular concept of domain adaptation. So we are restricting our discussion. Keep in your mind that supervised domain adaptation only. And in this supervised domain adaptation, whatever case studies we are going to discuss now, we are assuming that the features are similar, but distributions are different. Okay. So for that, we have used domain adaptation in interpretable classification model. So again, another new term has come here, interpretable classification model. The meaning here is that the classification model is interpretable one. You are able to understand the processing step of a classification model. Normally in deep learning and machine learning models, what we are encountered, our domains, because we are using a neural network for that one, it behaves like a black box. It behaves like a black box. Only we know how your inputs are going, how your outputs are coming. So explicitly, you are unable to understand the processing steps of your classification model. So if that is the case, the same thing or same kind of problems you may face in domain adaptations also. So how to minimize that effect using a interpretable classification model, that we'll discuss here. So in this classification model, we have used domain adaptation with interpretable rule-based fuzzy ELM. There are several terms are there. I assume that you understand the fuzzy set theory. So again, there is an assumption. I believe you are understanding fuzzy set, classical set, how fuzzy sets are used. Okay, how fuzzifications are made. What are the advantages of fuzzy set theory? Why do we require fuzzy set theory? Again, another terminologies we have to understand what is the ELM, extreme learning machine. So this is also one kind of neural network. But the basic difference between ELM and normal neural network is that your neural network is repeatable training steps are required. You train your network repeatedly. You send your training samples again and again. In an iterative manner, it works. Okay. Whereas in ELM, it passes once through the network. Okay. So let us see, by combining all the things, what advantages we are getting here. So the model uses 4 steps of operations. So first step is that we are using fuzzy set theory for fuzzifying your input feature space. Fuzzification of the input feature space gives us the advantage of inherent alignment of your feature space. See, you remember one thing I was telling here. You are aligning your feature space from target domain and source domain. Alignment means you are now looking both the features in a similar way. So if you go through the literatures, you will see that fuzzy set theory is one of those way of alignment of the feature space. It can be used for the feature space alignment. So here what we have done, we have used a data dependent fuzzification process to align the source domain and target domain features. We have used maximum fuzzy membership value based rule extraction. Whenever you are talking about fuzzy set theory based classification or analysis, you will also come across the term called fuzzy rule. Okay. So after fuzzification, normally what we do, we extract or we design the fuzzy based rules, and those rules are getting extracted. So here we have extracted fuzzy rules, not manually, but automatically. How that fuzzy rules can be automatically extracted from the fuzzified features that we are exploiting here. Okay. Using the element values of the rule matrix, that we'll discuss this particular term, using the rule values matrix, we are designing a ELM networks. Now we'll try to understand how many components are there in this particular classification model. One is the fuzzy set theory, another one is the ELM, third one is the domain adaptation, and fourth one is the supervised algorithm based domain adaptation. So these concepts are combined together to develop a classification model. We'll see what are the advantages we are getting. Okay. So finally, the application of IRF, interpretable rule-based fuzzy ELM. IRF ELM means interpretable rules-based fuzzy ELM framework in the land cover classification of remote sensing image using domain adaptation algorithm. So we have used 3 domain adaptation algorithms. We are not going to discuss what are the domain adaptation algorithms we have used. It's a very standard domain adaptation algorithm. We call it a DAPT, DAELM, DAELMT. Okay. So these are the domain adaptation concept we have used to develop a IRF classification model. Okay. So as I already told you, what is the motivations of ELM? See, you must be telling that why you are using these 4 concept in developing of the classification model. So the motivation for each and every model should be there. The motivation of using ELM instead of neural network is that your feed-forward neural network falling under the local minima. Strategic optimizations of network parameters are not, I mean, you need to strategically optimize that network parameter. It's a slow learning process, or sometimes we call it a by chance based decision maker. If you are lucky, maybe in 300 iterations you will get the result. If you are unlucky, then you may have to go for 500 number of iterations. So that is why we call it a by chance based decision makers. How much time I am allowed to, Dr. Semlal, how much time I am allowed to speak? Hello?
Sir,
Yeah.
you can go ahead another maybe 10 minutes, no issue.
Only 10 minutes.
No problem.
So
yeah, anyway.
Maybe 5-10 minutes extra I will take. I'm
Okay,
sorry
no problem. Let's say you can go up to 1 o'clock with the question answer.
Okay. Let us see that whether our participants will tolerate me or not. Okay. So advantage of ELM is that it is one pass learning. It is a single hidden layer based network, whereas in the feed-forward neural network you can go for 1, 2, 3 number of hidden layers. Okay. Input weights are randomly initialized, similar to your conventional neural network, whereas your output weights are not initialized randomly. It is decided based on a certain kind of concept that is called Moore-Parnos generalized inverse method. It is analytically determined. Okay, computationally it is estimated. Okay, so I'm not going more on details of the ELM. So we are using ELM because of these advantages. So your ELM networks looks like this. You okay? Your inputs are here, one hidden layer and one output layer, right? Very quickly I'll go. Now, second motivation point for the motivation for fuzzy rule-based ELM is something like this. It enhances the generalization's ability. We all know that what are the advantages of fuzzy set theory. It increases the generalization's ability in the analysis process. And the moment you are incorporating fuzzy rule with the ELM, then the two advantages, one advantage of using ELM, another advantage of using fuzzy rules, when they are combined, we call it a hybrid model. So fuzzy rule based ELM can be developed. Okay, that is already there. That is not our contribution. You can see this contribution from this particular reference. Okay, on equivalence of fuzzy inference systems and ELM for interpretable rule-based knowledge representations, which was published in 2015 and in IEEE transaction of neural networks and learning systems. Okay, so they have demonstrated what is the advantage of fuzzy rule-based ELM. So what are their contributions? Randomly assign the input values for automatic fuzzy rules-based fuzzy ELM without a prior knowledge from the human experts. Okay, it maintains a random aspects of ELM. Rules of comprehensibility is the most important factor in the aspect of decision making. We all understand that. To improve the classification efficiency with random evolution of some rules. These are the contributions which are there in this paper. What we did is that we tried to do some kind of modification in that particular approach. First approach is that fuzzification. The way they did that fuzzification, we changed the fuzzification process. The way they extracted the rules, our rule extraction procedures we changed. And finally, the knowledge extraction process from the fuzzy rules, whatever they did, we also changed there. So our contributions are in the three places. One is the fuzzification steps. Another one is the rule extraction, and third one is the combination of these fuzzy rules and ELM based. Okay, let us see this one. What are the differences? And we realize that by doing so, we can increase the performance of your conventional fuzzy rule based ELM. Okay, so your fuzzy rule based ELM looks like this. Actually, this is not the architecture from our end. It is the architecture which is explained in this particular work. Okay, in 2015. So this is what the architecture is. If you are really interested in the particular one, just go through that one. You can easily understand. There is nothing great here. Okay, so here your input features are given. Once the input features are given, you are using the fuzzy rules. Okay, fuzzification process. From this fuzzification process, you are devising the rules, and finally you are getting the labeled. Okay, I'm not going to the detail of that one. What modification we did on this particular architecture, there we will discuss. Now these are the works done by these people, okay, in 2015. What problems we may face if you are using their architectures? Issues with fuzzy rule based ELM. So what is done here? When they are performing the fuzzy rules or fuzzification process, they have taken fixed parameter of membership functions. Their centers, their standard deviations, all are fixed in nature. That means they originally determined their membership function, and those determined membership functions are used there. Now, what is the problem in that deterministic fuzzification? If you do, whenever you are going for deterministic fuzzification, deterministic means your parameters of the fuzzification process are fixed and predetermined. That means irrespective of your data, your fuzzification process happens. If you change your data, your fuzzification parameters are not changing. They are fixed. So sometimes we may call it as something like this model is not data dependent. This fuzzification process or fuzzy rule based ELM is data independent. And you can understand, if you are developing a model which is data dependent and which is data independent, which one is more superior? Okay. The second issue with the fuzzy rule based ELM is the network architecture depends on randomly generated information in the form of two matrices. They generate the rules random way. The moment we are using the term random, that means we are not actually interpreting that processing. We are not actually understanding that process. Same thing. You remember in neural network, what do we do? The weight parameters we take in a random manner. That is why neural networks are normally called as black box. They behave like a black box because their initial parameters, whatever they have selected, it is random in nature. And again, those random weight parameters are changed using some algorithms. Now that algorithm, again, hyperparameter, if you keep on changing and parameters, if you keep on changing, your updation process varies from person to person, experiment to experiment, data to data. So in a various way, you have these black box scenarios. So everything becoming random in nature. Here also in fuzzy rule based ELM, your randomly generated informations are used, which we have made it non-random in nature. Non-random means it will be data dependent. According to the requirement of the data, according to the information in their present in the data, we are fuzzifying them. We are extracting or we are devising the fuzzification parameters, means membership function parameters from the data itself. Obviously, if you are doing so, that fuzzification process becomes more interpretable in nature, and it will work better than a random way of generated fuzzy parameters. Okay. That is what use of fixed parameter for fuzzy membership function regardless of the data. Data independent, similar to the engineered features in shallow neural network. These are all, you know that, right? This is the basic motivation of deep learning over normal neural network or normal machine learning. In normal machine learning, what you do? You use engineered features, handcrafted features. Whereas in deep learning, these engineered and handcrafted are replaced by representative features. The extraction process of the features are automatic in nature. They are data dependent. Whereas your machine learning based, whenever you are using neural network in machine learning, those are data independent. Now you tell me whether your data dependent network will work or data independent work will work properly. Okay. So the method doesn't appropriately reflect the data distributions. If everything is random in nature, where is the questions of reflection of the data distribution? So what we did? We performed a kind of different fuzzification process. We normally have given the name data dependent fuzzifications and data independent fuzzifications. Okay, so these parameters are automatically extracted by the data set. You don't need to set the fuzzy parameters prior to the experiment. The fuzzy parameters will be automatically extracted from the data set, and fuzzification will happen, and that fuzzification will be called as data dependent fuzzifications. Okay. Now, once you, I'm not going details again, this data dependent fuzzification, if you are really interested, you can just have a read of our contribution papers. So that is clearly explained there. Now, let us go to the fuzzy rule generations. One fuzzifications happens using this process of dependent or non-dependent. See, CB means class belonging or class dependent. CNB means class non-belonging or class independent. Some nomenclature is there, so concept is same. So after fuzzification, then the next step is rule extraction. In fuzzy rule-based ELN, here the rule extractions are happening randomly. See, what is the meaning of a rule? Rule means whatever the requirement of our problem, accordingly we are devising some procedures. Okay, so that procedures are normally called as rules. If that rules are random in nature, so what is the consequences then? Consequences means whatever is happening inside that network, we don't have any control over that one. That becomes a kind of black box again. We try to make that rule extraction process automatic in nature or data dependent in nature, so that we will have certain control, some level of control on the rules extraction process. Okay, and for that we use that maximum fuzzy membership value based rule extraction. Okay, so what we have done here, so these are the procedures, just try to understand. So it's an illustration only. Let us say you have total number of data set, total number of samples of the data set is 30. 30 samples are there. You want to extract 6 number of rules. Okay, so the number of rules you are going to extract out of the 30 number of samples are 6. So that you need to know, right? How many number of rules are required? How many number of rules you can see. Somebody may take this as a research problem. Why these rules, number of rules are prefixed? Let it be automatic. The number of rules requirement for this classification model can be made automatic also. So that is one, it came to my mind. You can take it as a kind of research problem. How that rule, number of rules extractions can be made automatic. But here, for this particular work, we have fixed that number. Okay, and we have used class non-belonging fuzzification process. So what we did, the total number of data samples are divided by 6 total number of rules. Okay, so that means 6 division we made here. Divide the whole data into H subset. So each subset will contain 5 number of samples like this here, samples 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for each samples, you have features F1, F2, and F3 like this. Fi equal to, that means 3 features based data set here. So those 3 features based data sets are fuzzified using class non-belonging fuzzifications. So after fuzzifications, you see, we are just trying to estimate the maximum fuzzifications values in a majority way. That means out of the 5 samples, which fuzzified output are having maximum membership values. Now you can see you have 5 samples here, right? So after fuzzification, you are seeing this is maximum, this is maximum, this is maximum. That means mu C3 is having majority of maximum values for feature 1. So we'll not consider mu C1 and mu C2. We'll consider mu C3. Likewise, here mu C3 for fuzzy F2 and here mu C1 for F3. So you can devise a rule. Earlier, what you are doing? You are telling that if F1 is this much, F2 is this much, and F3 is this much, then this is your rules. Now that particular assumptions we don't need to consider. Here, what we will do? Whichever fuzzification process is giving the maximum value, we consider that as a part of the rule. Okay, so hence these elements together derive one rule that represents this subset of the 5 samples. So from here you can devise one rule. So how many such rules you can devise? Because you have h number of subset, you can devise h number of rules. Okay, after doing that, you are putting them in a form of matrix form. Now you see for this particular data set, how many number of features are there? 3 features. After fuzzification, it becomes 9. Okay, so here in this matrix, each row are representing that number of fuzzified features, and each column is representing the number of rules. Because here in this particular case, we have 9 number of fuzzified feature and 6 number of rules. So you can devise a matrix like this. You have 9 rows and 6 columns. Now the element value of this matrix is either 0 or 1. And where we have to put 1 and 0, just check. For the rule 1, where it is there, here, here, and here. So actually the maximum value wherever we are having, we have put 1, and the rest value we have put 0. Okay, so you are seeing, right? Mu C3 is maximum majority, mu C3 for fuzzy F2 is majority, and mu C3 1. Okay, so this one, and this one. So these are the, we have put 1 and rest we have put 0. Likewise, for other set, we constructed that matrix. Now those matrix, after defining that one, then we are using a kind of that is called don't care matrix. That means randomly we are eliminating that number of element. This element value either it is 1 or 0, that we are again refining them. For example, if you are talking about the first rule, 1 is here in the 3, 1, 6, 1, and 7, 1. And we are, this is a random matrix. This is randomly generated. This is D matrix. Okay. So we are seeing that in this D matrix, 3, 1 is there. This is 1. So this 1, actually these 3s are coming from the feature 1. These 3s are coming from the feature 2. These 3s are coming from the feature 3. So the size of the D matrix will also behave like a kind of number of matrix. Sorry, number of features. Okay. Because in the feature 1 you are having 1, you convert this 1 as 0. See, this after refining, earlier at this place it was 0, sorry 1, and now it becomes 0. So like that, you based on 1 and 0 values, you refine this matrix and you devise the 6 number of rules. So this can be done automatically. Now what is the advantage of doing that one? Here we are not using the fuzzified value. We are using the value either 1 or 0. 0 means that becomes the disconnected one. It is something like that. See, you remember when you are working with a neural network, the connectivity between one neuron to other neuron is made based on the weight values. If that weight value is 0, what does it mean? That means we are disconnecting that particular two neurons. There is no processing of information between these two neurons because that weight parameter becomes 0. Likewise, because we are using this as a weight parameter in the ELM network, because we are using this matrix values 1 and 0 in the ELM network, that means we are disconnecting this particular connectivity wherever 0 is there, and we are only retaining that connectivity where 1 is there. So like that, we can devise a IRF ELM based architecture, interpretable rule based fuzzy ELM. This is what the algorithm, I have already described that algorithm, you can see that one. And finally, you can devise a classification model like this. So this is the schematic flow diagram of the classification model. Your original feature is going, your fuzzification process, you are fuzzifying them, you are developing a interpretable rule extraction for R matrix, there are R and D. Once that is done, the designing the architecture of the classifier, then the fuzzification of the training ELM, and finally you are getting a classifier. Okay. Now, using that classification model, we tested this model on the remote sensing data. Okay. So the remote sensing data, whatever we have used here is that LIS3 data. LIS3, I will be understanding. It's a sensors which collect the remote sensing data. Okay. LIS3 data and LIS2 data. LIS3 data we have taken as the source data. LIS2 data we have taken as the target data. Source domain, target domain. Okay. 1200 samples are collected from each of the domain for the experiment, because it's a supervised model, so that means we have required amount of level data. Okay. For that, for the testing of the feasibility of the model, we have developed 5 different classification model. One model is ELM with original features. Original feature means there is no fuzzification happens here. Okay. So all these input features are given to the ELM and you are getting the result. FELM. FELM is the ELM which are used here. This ELM, fuzzy rule, original ELM, which was published in 2015. Okay. Now, using that FELM, we change the fuzzification process. One is data independent, one is class non-belonging, another is class belonging. And we realize that this particular combination is giving better result. Fuzzy ELM based data independent and class belonging fuzzifications. So what we did, we changed them into random rule based fuzzy ELM and interpretable rule based fuzzy ELM. Okay, so like that 5 models are developed, and these 5 models are applied on these particular images, and this is the result whatever we got. So this is the number of rules. So this is the accuracy factor, overall accuracy, and this is the time taken and all the things. Now you can easily see that accuracy factors from model 1 to model 5 is almost 10% increment. And from the data independent, this is what model 2 is actually the model which was developed in 2015. That was the reference one. Okay, this one. This is the fuzzy ELM. Okay, so fuzzy ELM is providing how much accuracy? 85%. Whereas the proposed model is here, this interpretable classifier model is giving 92%. So almost 7% increment in the accuracy. Also the standard deviations also you can see, and time factor. So this way of ELM architectures are taking hardly 0.4 seconds, whereas they are taking 4 seconds. So we are getting advantage in terms of accuracy, also the time complexities. And this is the classification models. This is the classified remote sensing images. Okay, as I told you, LIS2 data is the target domain. So this is the test samples. Okay, so using the data, we classified them and we got the classified images. This is the land cover classification. We have taken 6 classes: concrete area, pure water, habitation, vegetation, turbid water. Turbid water means this is one actually river. You can see one snake-like architecture is there. This is actually a river. This is the pure water region. Okay, this is actually, if you see the Indian map, this image has been taken from Kolkata region. This is the Hooghly Bridge. Okay, and somehow this is the region. And using that model, we classified the list 2 data, taking the information of list 3 data. Right? And we compared the performance of the model, and we could see that there is a visible difference between the classified accuracy between class model 1 and model 5. So this is what both qualitatively and quantitatively we can say that this proposed model, whatever we have developed, is providing better result than the existing model. Okay. So I would acknowledge this is what this end of this today's talk from me, and I acknowledge my research scholar who has worked in this particular area, and this is the references. We have published this paper in IEEE transaction on remote GEOS TGRS, and it is in press, and it has just been published in 2021. So if you are really interested, you just go through that one, and if you face any problem in understanding that one, please put a word to me. I'll be happy to address those things. So thank you very much for your participations and tolerating me for almost 2 hours. Thank you very much.